and we're now going to proceed to the debate on justice and equality, which means we have to take motions number 33 to 37, and I'm calling on the mover of motion number 33 from the Dublin Rathdown Constituency Council to move the motion. Letty.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to see such a full hall here at this time. I'm speaking on motion 33, and this is where conference calls and notes the difficulties that adults with severe physical or intellectual disabilities and their families encounter in having to deal with multiple agencies in order to access the care and support necessary for them to lead full lives. And we all know, and I certainly know, of families within our own communities who have children with severe physical or intellectual disabilities. They can be lucky and they can get their child into a school. And I say lucky because this is by no means a given. And I know again within my own constituency, families who cannot get their child, maybe who has autism or other intellectual different abilities, into a school. I know of families who had to set up their own school in order to allow their child access to education, and that is subjecting parents and families to a life of fundraising and trying to scrape money together in order to get their child some sort of an education. Whatever support is there for these youngsters, it seems to disappear once the children become 18. And it is not right that these young people are literally handed back to their parents or their families or carers without a plan, and it is not right that these young people are condemned to a life of sitting at home without any ongoing education or any stimulation for them. Parents, families and carers, they have to navigate through various services again. Now apparently there is a budget, but trying to access that budget, it's not at all clear. And where you have somebody who maybe with a disability and during their time in school or whatever area they are, where a speech therapist hasn't been replaced for over 6 months, this is a situation that isn't good enough and cannot go on. But once they become 18, there is literally nothing there for them. Those youngsters cannot and do not go on to work or go on to college or do what people with different abilities can do. So conference calls for the establishment of a single state unit entity to provide access to the necessary comprehensive support services for adults with severe physical or intellectual disabilities and their families, to replace the current fractured and opaque system of state, commercial and voluntary services. I move this motion.
Thank you, Letty. That was Councillor Letty McCarthy, who is also our candidate in the Dublin Rathdown constituency, moving motion number 33. And can I again emphasise, please, movers and seconders and speakers to please say who they are and their branch or constituency or section or whatever before, so that we have a record of an accurate record. So, seconder, formally seconded. So motion number 33 is before the floor. Motion number 34 now, in the name of Labour Equality. Pádraig.
Friends and comrades, the aim of this motion is not just to end the direct provision system, which should not be operating in this country. It's to make amends for that system by granting an amnesty to anyone who has been in that system for more than 12 months, to give people who have been in that system a path to normalisation, a path back to a normal life, and a way of integrating into this country's life in a way that shows that they are respected. We can't complain about any other country's immigration systems when our system is deliberately punitive and for profit. We can't tolerate this system continuing in its current form, and we must make amends for one of the worst things we are doing to people at the moment in this country. I ask you to support this motion to help those who are trapped in a system that does not treat them as human, that treats them as a source of profit, and that resents even a slice of bread to a sick child. We have to stop this system. And can I just address the addendum to the motion? I think it's a very good addendum, but I would be concerned that it is lecturing other countries about something that we are worse at. The Dublin Convention and the Dublin Regulations on acceptance of refugees into the EU has ignited such a fire in Europe that we have to take responsibility for our part in that. So I ask you to support this motion and to end the system of direct provision and to give people a normal life. Thank you, comrades.
Pádraig, just to be clear, are you accepting the addendum?
Yes, accepting the addendum.
You're accepting the addendum. Okay, thank you, Pádraig. Is there a seconder for the motion now? Formally seconded. Thank you, delegates. I know, just, Sean, I'll chair the conference. Right? Yeah. So now I want to call on Pádraig.
Sorry for that. Pádraig McLaughlin, Chair, Labour Equality.
Thanks, Pádraig. Now, again, can I emphasise, the first thing you do when you get up is say who you are and what branch, constituency, section, whatever you're representing. Please. Now, can we have the mover for the addendum in the name of Inishbigil Mayo? Sorry, Sean.
Jeremy Holt, Inishbigil Mayo, affiliated, I think, to the Westport branch, according to the bits of paper. I am the sole member. I'm like a chairman of a tribunal. Sole member, I'm Inishbigil, but there you go. I think what I'd like to do, the easiest and quickest thing to do, is to just read you an email I sent to the relevant minister. Dear Minister, I'm advised by the Office of the Attorney General to address my representation to you. A report in the Guardian online edition dated 24th of the 9th, 2018, referred to the revocation of registration of the Médecins Sans Frontières vessel Aquarius. Aquarius is operating search and rescue missions in the Mediterranean, as indeed are Irish Navy vessels. The report states that having been deflagged by Gibraltar and re-registered by the Panama Maritime Authority, our EU colleague Italy brought pressure to bear on the PMA to again deregister the Aquarius. On humanitarian grounds, I call on the Irish authorities to immediately extend an offer of Irish flag registration to any humanitarian search and rescue vessel stripped of registration on spurious or political grounds. Yours sincerely. Chairman, I was delighted to see that the relevant minister is Comrade Ross. So I urge our parliamentarians to do their very best anyway. Yeah. And if anybody's speaking to this motion afterwards, I'd love to hear if there are any medics or any volunteers, overseas volunteers, maybe could put a word or two in. Thank you.
Thank you.
I commend the amendment.
Now, is there a seconder for the addendum? It's formally seconded. Thank you, delegates. Now, motion number 35 in the name of the Crumlin, Kimmage, Frank Klutsky branch.
just checking this, check out who I actually am. Michael O'Sullivan from Dublin South Central, actually from the Joe DC branch, but the person proposing originally is unwell. In our motion is about pathways to citizenship, but I would just like to say that in the motion it refers to people who were born outside the country, but since we submitted the motion, the issue about the young lad in Wicklow, Eric Hugh, who was born in this country, has lived in this country, has gone to school in this country, and now he's been told he's not an Irish citizen, has come up. And I just want to welcome the comments from Brendan Howland to say that the Labour Party are going to do something about that awful amendment that was passed in this country in 2004, which has led to situations like this where people who are born and bred in this country are told that they're not Irish citizens. So I welcome that, and I think it's something that it's long overdue. The amendment allows us to legislate to stop this sort of thing happening. But people like Eric are going to face the same problem that's identified in this motion. We've been lucky over the last 20 years or so to welcome hundreds of thousands of people who come to live and work in this country. And luckier still that many of those want to make their life here. They want to settle here and become citizens. And that's a good thing. It means they can continue to contribute, and it means then that we have equality for everybody. Everybody is part of our society. However, there's a problem. Sometime about 2011, we hiked up the fees for people who want to become citizens. So the fee for a single person, one person on their own becoming a citizen, is at least €1,250, €1,250. You might have additional costs because you've got to get some documents translated. If you're a family, if you come here and raise your family here and 3 or 4 kids and a couple, it could cost them €3,000 or €4,000 to get citizenship. That causes an immediate problem because a lot of people who came here work in jobs that aren't really well paid. So we have an initial problem with equality in that migrants who are well paid can access citizenship, those who are not so well paid will put it off. We have an extra problem that's happened because of Brexit. There are lots of people here with British passports who've lived here for 30, 40 years, raised their family here, may now be pensioners here. They're being told that they have to pay €1,250 to get a passport here now, which is, because of Brexit, something that they didn't think they needed, but now they need it. And on the other hand, we have people who may never have set foot in the country, who happen to have an Irish grandparent and can get the same citizenship rights for €270. So these are anomalies that we can deal with. They're anomalies we need to deal with because we need to make sure that the diversity that has contributed so much to the country is supported by equality. So I urge you to support the motion.
Seconder, is there a seconder? Formally seconded. And now we're moving to motion number 36 in the name of Dunleary Constituency Council. Deirdre.
Thanks, Chair. Deirdre Kingston, Dunleary Constituency, Blackrock Branch. Comrades, this motion from the Dunleary constituency expresses solidarity with all of those who have been a victim of sexual abuse or violence. 42% of women have experienced some sort of sexual abuse or assault, and over a quarter of men have experienced one or the other as well. The SAVI report, which stands for Sexual Abuse and Violence in Ireland, was carried out to assess the levels of sexual abuse in Ireland, and it looked at the impact on victims as well, and also looked at how we should resource services in this country and the attitudes towards people that have been victims of sexual assault. This report was last carried out 16 years ago. It's a huge amount of time, and a huge amount has changed since then. There's been an awakening in this area, and many women and men are now more confident about talking about their experiences, and they feel that they have the support in society as well to come forward and speak about it openly. So the importance of these studies can't be overestimated. We know that only a very small percentage of people actually report these experiences to the Gardaí. So reports like these are very important because it provides a safe space for people to discuss their experiences. It also ensures that there is investment in these areas, and that sends a really important message to survivors. It tells them that they are worthy of this investment and that we support them 100% in dealing with their trauma. It's nothing to be ashamed of, it's nothing to be brushed under the carpet, which is why it was pretty unacceptable to see that Fine Gael were delaying committing to spending just €1 million on an updated report. Since then, they have said that they are going to carry it out, but they want to see how they go about it. So they're delaying, another delaying tactic, and I think it sends the wrong message out there to people that have experienced any sort of sexual assault. So it's only through repetition of these reports that we are really going to get an understanding of the trends that we're experiencing in Ireland, and then we can properly plan and resource the services for victims in this country. That's why the motion calls for a report to be done every 5 years, and I'd ask you all to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Deirdre. That was Councillor Deirdre Kingston, who is also our candidate in Dún Laoghaire constituency next time out. Is there a seconder for the motion? It's formally seconded. And now we're moving to motion number 37 in the name of Dublin North West Constituency Council. Andrew.
Councillor Andrew Montague from the Dublin North West constituency and candidate for the next general election. I want to tell you about an issue that's happening in my own community and in many communities around Dublin and around the country. And that's the issue of motorbikes being used really to terrorise the communities that they're in. This June, on a Saturday night, two of my neighbours, two women in their late 50s, were meeting to go out on a night out, met at the local Centra shop, and they were standing outside the shop when a motorbike mounted the pavement and smashed into them, and they broke multiple limbs, both women. While they were lying on the ground, instead of trying to help them, the perpetrator roared and abused at them to threaten them in case they might ring the guards to get the motorbike seized. So while this was happening, a local drug gang came along, took the bike away and removed all evidence. So by the time the guards came, there was nothing the guards could do to get that bike. And that bike is still in circulation and going around our community on a regular basis. Some of our drug gangs have taken to buying these bikes en masse and they rent them out. So there's a couple of occasions where I've been walking down the street with my 2-year-old son and my 6-month-old son, where I've come across up to 10 bikes coming towards me on the street, scrambling, doing wheelies, mounting the footpath. Our communities are under terror, they're under siege, and they're screaming out for some help. So what are the guards doing about this? Well, to be honest, the guards' hands are really tied. Logistically, they don't want to chase people who are riding these motorbikes, and they're right, because that will encourage them to go even faster, to become more reckless, and to put more lives in danger. If they do, by chance, get to seize one of these motorbikes, they have to give it back if the person can show proof of ownership of the bike, so they can't hold on to the bike. So these bikes are just staying in circulation, and our community are staying under siege as a result. So, for that reason, I want to give the guards the power to remove these bikes without an automatic right to return. I think if somebody wants to get that bike, they should have to go before a judge and show how they would use that bike responsibly, and let the onus be on the person who's abusing their motorbike rather than on the guards to automatically give it back. And in the context of the terror and the abuse that our communities are under, I don't want to accept the addendum that we should be building motorbike parks to, in a sense, reward the people who are abusing these privileges that they've got. So, in a different context, I think that could be looked at, but I don't want to associate it with this motion to deal with the dangerous behaviour that's going on in my community. So I would ask you to support my motion, but without accepting the addendum. And that addendum, I think, could be looked at in a different context at a different time, but I don't want to associate it with this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Is there a seconder for the motion? Alison.
Councillor Alison Gilliland, Santry Kilmore in Dublin Bay North constituency. I want to formally second Andrew's motion and also emphasise everything that he has said about the threat of those bikes. I think one in my own constituency in Darndale Park has been featured on the television. It is very much a massive antisocial behaviour, and the guards' hands, as Andrew said, are tied. I'd also like to support his non-acceptance of the addendum. I do think it's a really great idea, and there are communities that would be very open to having those facilities, but they're two very, very separate issues. Thank you.
So now, have we a mover for the addendum in the name of the Oxmanstown branch? Is anybody prepared to risk the row? So, it's formally moved. Percy? Sorry? Is there a seconder? Yes, it's formally seconded. So now, the motions 33, 34 with the addendum, 35, 36, 37 and the addendum are before the floor for debate. Are there any speakers offering? Yes, Robert, come on. Can I ask, please, speakers, people intending to speak in debates, would they come up, please, and sit in the front so that we don't lose any time? Anybody wishing to speak in the debate now, would they please come up and sit here at the front? So I take it then that Robert is the only speaker offering.
Robert Dowds, Clondalkin Rathcoole branch. I want to acknowledge, before I speak, the work that Eamon O'Riordan did when he was a minister with responsibility in the area of immigration. However, there is a great deal to be done, and I just want to make one point in relation to my own area. There is an asylum centre in Clondalkin, and the people there have been told that they have to vacate within a month's time. And there is a big scramble as to try to get alternative accommodation for them. So even when they are in asylum centre, some of them are in a very vulnerable situation. I want to make some broader points, though. I absolutely agree with the motion, but I think we need to broaden this whole discussion. We need to develop a full and proper policy in relation to migrants to this country. And amongst the things we need to provide for migrants is to have a situation where they have access to English classes, and I would regard that as something that's obligatory unless they are already fluent in English. And that on top of that, they should have access to classes on Irish culture, life and practice, because it is really an important thing in terms of people adjusting to life in this country. It can be small things. I mean, I was out with our local Tidy Towns group a few weeks ago, and there was an African woman actually from the asylum centre helping, and she was very gingerly picking up papers with a paper picker from the grass. So I said, "Why are you going so gingerly?" She said, "Oh, I'm afraid a snake might jump up at me." So she didn't know that there are no snakes in Ireland. So, I mean, that's just one small example. There are many, many examples of things. And people need to be given access to that information, and many of those people want that access anyway. But if they are to become, in the end, good citizens of this country, they will benefit, and indeed the economy of the country will benefit from giving those people a leg up. So, in conclusion, I would ask that we would actually set up a small group to develop a policy for immigration and for immigrants to Ireland, because it's something we are not accustomed to dealing with in the past, and it's been left on a laissez-faire basis up to this, and it is not good enough, and there will be considerable problems down the road unless we address this issue properly. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert, but I think you misled that woman by telling her there was no snakes in Ireland.
I did say there were some humans.
So we've no further speakers offering. I want to invite Deputy Sean Sherlock, the party spokesman on Justice and Equality, to respond to the debate.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach, and in order to be helpful to yourself as chair, as I always endeavour to do, I'm conscious of the fact that there are 3 more sections after this, and the television slot is at 11 o'clock. So I propose that we accept the motions that are put here before us today. I would just ask, please, that on 37, I understand where Andrew is coming from on this, but I was hopeful that maybe Andrew's motion would stand as a standalone motion because it is very specific. And if there was some compromise on the addendum, I think that would be very welcome. But I'll be guided by yourselves on that one. And I'm particularly delighted to see the motion in respect of the cost of applying for citizenship, because the cost of 1,125 is exorbitant. And we all know people within our communities, particularly from the UK, who might have been born in the UK but have lived here for many a year, working people who cannot afford to spend 1,125 euros to become naturalised. So I particularly welcome that motion, because I think we should do something for those people who have lived and contributed and paid taxes in this country. The least we can do is to make the cost of naturalisation as not prohibitive for those people. Also, in relation to the issue of the direct provision and 34, I mean, 12 months to me is too short. I will be very frank about that. There is the McMahon report. There are 173 recommendations in the McMahon report, and I think what we need to do is to ensure that those 173 recommendations are absolutely implemented, but also the County Clare Direct Provision Centre, the issue that arose there with that young boy who was denied access to food. Well, I think the simple solution to that is based on common sense, that you have some sort of self-catering provision within every centre to allow for families access, as needs be, to simple provisions like food as and when is required. And I think that would solve a lot of that as well. So there is a clear issue, though, in relation to the private operators and the protocols that they operate, because what we want to see is a bit of humanity, a bit of decency, a bit of equality, and we need to treat people as human beings and not apply bureaucratic and technocratic solutions to them. Treat people with a bit of decency and humanity, which leads me on to the sound man from Inishbigel, Mr. Holt, who has Mallow connections, I'm delighted to report, and to say that this is an important motion as well. I'm happy to accept that, but I'm also happy to acknowledge the fact that Ireland has not been found wanting in respect of its efforts through the Irish Naval Services, working naval personnel who are saving lives in the Mediterranean. And we have to acknowledge that 1,700 lives were lost at sea since 2018. And this idea that the Aquarius now is having its flag revoked, the last of the private search vessels, is an anathema to what we stand for in terms of the European Union and what it should stand for in relation to its humanitarian efforts. So there needs to be a consolidated European Union approach to ensuring that you tackle the deflagging issue or the revocation of flags by Gibraltar and Panama and others, and ensure that there is a coordinated political redoubling of the efforts to ensure that no lives are lost at sea. So I'm happy to support these motions. I would just ask, please, for a little bit of latitude for Andrew on the Dublin West Constituency Council motion in relation to the addendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Now we're going to vote on those motions. So, motion number 33, all in favour, please show. All against. Declare the motion carried. Motion number 34, we have to deal with the addendum first. The addendum has been accepted by the mover. All in favour, please show. All against. I declare the addendum carried. And now motion 34 with the addendum. All in favour, please show. All against. I declare the motion carried. Motion number 35. All in favour, please show. All against. I declare the motion carried. Motion number 36. All in favour. All against. I declare the motion carried. Motion number 37, and there is an addendum which was moved formally from the floor on behalf of the Oxmanstown branch, which is not acceptable to the movers in the Dublin North West Constituency Council. So they are asking you to oppose it this time. So I'm going to put the addendum first. All in favour, please show. All against. Abstentions. I declare the addendum lost. And now motion number 37 without the addendum. All in favour, please show. All against. I declare motion number 37 carried. And now we're proceeding to